there's a recent Netflix movie.
Only fact is it predominantly affects darker skin.
The one look into it was when I heard Prodigy had it.
My crime family who got enough shots.
If this is what my life isn't worth living.
He was complaining that he was breathless and they would not listen to him.
The number of annual deaths of people with sickle cell disease not having access to treatment, and we know what they need.
Relentless.
Yeah.
The worst thing about pain.
In one word, what does sickle cell disorder mean to you?
Pain.
Sickle cell disorder is an inherited genetic blood disorder. It comes from both parents. And what it is you have to think about the function of the red blood cell. And what the red blood cell does is carry oxygen throughout all parts of the body. With sickle cell disorder, those blood cells are not round and supple. They get sticky and they get stuck in the blood cells. So where they get stuck in the blood cells, there is no oxygen going to those parts of the body. And that of itself creates what is sometimes called a sickle cell crisis. So it's excruciating pain that normally necessitates a hospital visit. So if you take London, for example, sickle cell disorder is in the top 15 of all causes for emergency hospital admissions.
Evan was our only child. He would be 27 years old now if he was still alive. And shortly after he was born, we realized that he had sickle cell disorder.
Evan had graduated in health economics. He loved football so much that whilst he was in uni, he took a part-time job doing football stats analysis for a company. And that was where he was working part-time till he passed. Would you like me to elaborate on a bit of what he went through? Evan had his gallbladder removed, and then in his notes, it was noted that he had to remove a stent which had been placed in his gallbladder to prevent the stones from coming down. But now that his gallbladder had been removed, he didn't need the stent anymore. This procedure kept being cancelled, even though it had been stated that it should be done within 2 weeks after the gallbladder had been removed. So he never got any more appointments until April 2019. And even that appointment was going to be cancelled when he complained that, why is this happening to me? And so he was fitted into that day, and he had the stent removed and was discharged home, but without any antibiotics. Being a sickle cell patient, the gastro team should have liaised with the hematology team, and that's where we can say that the specialist team and the hematology team didn't do well. Evan stayed in hospital over the bank holiday weekend, receiving very poor care, because obviously bank holiday weekends were not as busy as other weekends and there were no specialists around. He was sent from A&E to a ward where the nurses didn't even have a clue about sickle cell. These nurses, Evan started complaining about pain and about feeling breathless. But because he had been placed in this ward, the corridors of a ward, because there was no proper bed available and there were no oxygen points, the nurses were saying, there's nothing wrong with him, your ops are fine. Evan, however, tried to advocate for himself and seek help, by using his phone to call the ambulance service. And he was told, since he was already in hospital, they couldn't bring him any oxygen. And by the time the hematologist team were informed to come and see him after the bank holiday, the Tuesday, they realized Evan's condition had deteriorated so badly, and there was little they could do to save him. They admitted at the coroner's inquest that had Evan been given blood transfusion, he wouldn't have died.
2 hours. 2 hours.
Sickle crisis is like having every bone in your body shattered and broken, then someone taking a baseball bat and beating you with that bat, then beat you while you run a marathon and continue beating you. Pain can kill. Pain can shut your body down. I have been in so much pain that I couldn't scream.
Sickle cell influences family planning. For me, it's always been, from when you're young, they always tell you, once you start thinking about having a relationship, you know, you need to bring the person in to be seen by the nurses, have their blood taken, because you want to reduce the chances of, you know, having a child with sickle. So it's always been in my head that whenever I want to settle down with someone, that I would need to get them tested. Obviously that can be hard, you know, when do you tell someone, oh yeah, I've got this illness and you need to come and get tested, because there might be a chance that we might not be able to have kids if you've got, you know, if you carry the gene.
Breathing hurts. To do that is painful. If you want to pee, it is painful. If I got an itch, I would contemplate whether I need to scratch that itch, because it is painful. That pain is 24/7. It never lets up. And unfortunately, sometimes it gets even worse. So if I get an infection on top of that pain, I know that pain is going to be beyond uncontrollable. I had a severe sickle cell crisis, and I was on roughly 150 milligrams of morphine every 2 hours. It's almost an illegal dose. And then I had the leg ulcers, which, losing all the skin and nearly all the flesh from just below both knees down to the soles of my feet. You know, you get that pain in your leg.
Yeah.
And you know that they feel like, you know when they're going to put a tourniquet on?
Yes.
And they pump it up and they squeeze. Oh. And the pain in your leg get worse, and it's like being fractured.
Yep.
You know, and it just builds.
Yeah. And obviously you can't even, like, you're limping all the time. Yeah. Everything just feels so difficult to walk on. And then obviously it works its way up through like your hips. And then up your back.
Yeah, and when it gets to that part, when you get your abdomen and your back and your arch in your back, and then like, you know, you get that electric shock.
Yeah.
And we're like, it's just, yeah, it's killing you.
Yeah, to the point where you can't breathe.
Yeah.
And it just feels like someone's sitting on your chest.
Yeah.
And hammering your chest at the same time.
Definitely. And you remember the Alien movies?
Yes, I do.
Remember when it bursts out your chest?
Yeah.
And then like you want to scream but you can't, and you're just like holding your breath, and it's
silent.
Nothing, yeah.
Silence.
And then it works its way up your body.
Yep.
And then you get that pain in your head.
Yeah.
And that vice-like feeling. And it just clamps down on you. And it just squeezes.
Yeah.
And, like, even your vision goes.
Yeah, and you feel, it's worse than a migraine, in my opinion, because it just feels like someone's sitting in your head, squashing it together.
And it's just like, it just pounds you. It never lets up.
So, growing up with sickle cell, my education being interrupted due to ill health was one challenge. But another was having to deal with school kids bullying and teasing me about what they thought was my life expectancy. One of the misconceptions is the fact that, it's a disease and you actually have people thinking sickle is something that you can catch. It's actually something that goes wrong, that affects your DNA, so therefore a disorder in your makeup. So sickle cell disorder is what SCD stands for. It was taught and written in science class and science books in those days that one with sickle wouldn't live past the age of 25. So for me, that added an additional torment, emotional and mental torment, with every single sickle cell crisis I had, wondering which will be my last. It basically left me feeling like my future was non-existent.
From a research perspective, sickle cell disease is a really fascinating disease because it's been identified more than 100 years ago, but we still don't really know about its precise origin. There are theories that it was originating in one specific location in Africa, or some hypotheses suggest that it came from multiple origins. And it's a single point mutation in the DNA, so single point mutations occur very often in the human genome, and in itself it's not a rare event. What's really specific about sickle cell disease is that it's been selected and reached high frequencies in some populations across the world.
Well, the intense pain of a sickle cell crisis is really the cardinal symptom of sickle cell disease. And that's caused by a difference in the way that the body makes hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is the part of the red blood cell that carries oxygen around the body. The difference in the way that hemoglobin is made causes the hemoglobin to clump together into these long rods or spindles. And as it does that, it can change the shape of the red blood cell. And this causes the cell to become fragile and kind of sticky. It gets stuck in small blood vessels and it can rupture. And when that happens, that stops blood flow to that part of the body.
Sub-Saharan Africa, the Middle East and India, but also in pockets of southern Italy, Sardinia and Sicily, and southern Greece, affects mostly people of African origins, but also people of Middle Eastern origin, people of Indian origin, and white populations from the Mediterranean area.
Psychology is really the study of the brain and behavior. And we've seen already that the brain creates pain. And so we can use our understanding of the brain to help manage pain. Unfortunately, we don't have direct control over our pain. We can't just will the pain to go away. But what we do know is that we can control our attention. All of us can control our attention. And we know that it's difficult to focus on more than one thing at a time. So if we have pain, one thing we can do, and most sickle cell patients do this already naturally, you can distract yourself from the pain. You can move your attention away from the pain towards a book or a film or a conversation or a work task. And if you can do that, then you won't notice the pain so much. This strategy works really well for mild to moderate pain. The problem, though, is what about when the pain gets really severe? What if it's so severe that you cannot distract yourself? That can be really scary, because if distraction was the main strategy you used, well, now it's not working.
What you can see visibly compared to what's going on inside the body can be huge, because actually sickle cell is really often a hidden disorder. And whilst some people may have external visible signs of having sickle cell, for example, if they're in severe pain, it might be apparent. They may have complications that mean they need walking aids, for example, or mobility aids. But actually the underlying disease inside and internally can be wreaking havoc on the body.
As a clinical nurse specialist looking after people with sickle cell disorder, the jobs never end. You know, it's an amazing job to be able to do. Education is a huge part of what we do, especially for staff that we work alongside in the wards, in A&Es, in theatres, wherever it might be, but also educating patients and their families and their friends. I think, both things are equally as important. We can't do our job if we don't know, and the patients can't look after themselves if they don't know.
Whenever we talk about sickle cell disease, we must always think about the person's mental health as well as their physical health. If we look at the reality of what it's like living with sickle cell disease right through someone's lifetime, we see repeated experiences of living with pain, crises, hospital admissions, treatment, missing school, missing work, the struggles of everyday life living with sickle cell. And so we must always really think about someone's mental health as well as their physical health.
Consultant nurses are very, very rare. They're not very common. I think I know 2 across all the trusts that we've worked alongside. But when you look at nurse specialists, there are more. But when you compare it to other disorders like cystic fibrosis, the recommendation is for 1 nurse to every 75 people, and in sickle cell it's 1 nurse to every 100 people. So there's a big disparity there.
So there's a group of people living with sickle cell at the moment in their 40s and 50s, and many of them report that when they were younger, they were given the message, you will only live until you're 20. And I think that's landed in various ways for people.
It's actually a really exciting time to be working in sickle cell. There are a range of clinical trials ongoing at the moment, both looking at ways of stopping a crisis when it started, but also preventing them from coming. And of course, some of the most exciting work, and I think something that is really interesting and exciting for patients particularly, is the possibility for the gene therapies and the new treatments that are on the horizon.
Having blood meant that I could actually plan. I could actually do things. If I said to my friends, let's go out next week, I was well enough to be able to go out. And I would still get sick, but that tipping point wouldn't come as often, and I was able to withstand it better. And I can't explain to people just how much of a difference that's made.
The choice that you make will lead to something. If you think that something will not help, try anyway, because maybe that could lead to, oh, now I'm better. Before I couldn't do a lot, like I said, but now it's like I can do everything and more.
Currently, the only curative option we have on the NHS is for a bone marrow transplantation, and that has various challenges in itself. Not everybody is eligible, not everybody has a suitable donor. There's a lot of complex treatment that's required for that.
Because of the stem cell transplant, I now do more things than I used to do. Take the leap. A few weeks in hospital. I'd rather that than be in hospital every day.
The really exciting things on the horizon are really around the gene therapies, and we're really hopeful, those of us working in the field are really hopeful that certainly during my career we'll be able to see curative treatments being offered to many, many more patients. And these are looking at really correcting the underlying disorder itself. The NHS approval means that people with severe forms of sickle cell who otherwise may be eligible for a transplant but don't have a donor might be suitable for gene therapy. So whilst this is a fantastic breakthrough, it still involves complex treatment and not everybody is suitable for it.
A lot of the work of Black Thrive is looking at the institutional and systematic racism that black communities face, particularly in mental health. So when I think about sickle cell disease, we're all aware of the report No One's Listening in 2021 that talked about the institutional racism that lots of sickle cell people experience when they went to help, either in A&E or through the specialists that were treating them. And we've already heard about the death of Evan Smith that could have been avoided if people had taken him seriously.
There is a real workforce crisis. There are not enough experts with sickle cell disorder either working in the system at the moment or coming through for training. And what we're often hear as doctors and nurses and people working with these communities is that whilst they often report a good experience of care with their specialist teams, often if they have to present, for example, in an emergency, there just aren't enough people who have the expertise.
I'd like to see, in my lifetime, a sort of shift from a neglected disease to a disease that is well managed in all settings.
While sickle cell predominantly affects people of colour, there are white individuals and children who have sickle cell. When we talk to patients and adults, they say, oh, well, sickle cell's not going to affect me, but actually 1 in every 300 white UK births today is a white baby who has sickle cell anemia or is a sickle cell carrier, or carrier can also mean having the trait. So part of it is getting the message across that this affects all ethnicities. Some ethnicities more than others, but it affects everybody, and therefore once we get away from sickle cell being seen as a black person's condition, that will be progress.
Just because you have sickle cell does not mean you can't achieve something. People will see you on TV doing various things and they say, oh, you know, you're brave or whatever. I don't consider myself brave. The only difference between me and a lot of other people is just that I have never given up.
Never said it wouldn't hurt. Pick myself up from the dirt. No matter how many times I fall, I keep on rising on and on up. Won't let it break me down. Hold my stance on solid ground. Pushing me way beyond my limit, but I just keep going on and on up.